Welcome to This Must Be Heard, a recurring podcast featuring discussions of Delaware County Community College's events, achievements, and initiatives. Today's episode features DCCC and Hedgerow Theater's joint production of William Shakespeare's Macbeth. You'll hear an interview with one of the play's co-directors, as well as some performances from cast members. Enjoy the show.
When shall we meet again?
In thunder, lightning, or in rain.
When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won.
That will be ere the set of sun.
Where the place?
Upon the heath, there to meet with Macbeth.
I come, Grey Malkin.
Petal calls. Anon!
Fair is foul, and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy air.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of This Must Be Heard. Today, my co-host Jamie and I will be interviewing Sarah Stryker, the co-director of DCCC and Hedgerow Theater's production of Macbeth. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Awesome. Well, then I think we can move right in with our first question for Sarah. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us a little bit about the production and your role in it?
Sure. This production of Macbeth is a co-production with Delaware County Community College and Hedgerow Theater, which is located right outside of Media. This production is exciting for a number of reasons. One, personally, for me, I just really love working with the students, but it's also really exciting because my co-director, Stephen Smith, he's kind of the backbone of the theater department at DCCC. He's introducing a lot of really cool movement stuff and music stuff into the play that isn't in every production of this play. So I think that's going to be really cool to see.
And can you tell us a little bit about how Hedgerow came with DCCC to put on this production of Macbeth?
Yeah, I don't know all of the details because I've only been a fellow since August, and I know that the relationship between Hedgerow and DCCC has existed prior to that, but prior to working on this production of Mackers, which we in the theater, we tend to find some substitute for the word Macbeth just because there's superstitions all about, playing it. But we're not in a theater. For me, it's a force of habit at this point to just not call it by its name. But so I know that DCCC co-prod 12th Night here at Hedgerow last summer and also at Delaware County Community College. And then a play called Tuesday, which Steve Smith also directed. And I believe, I have my facts right, he's the only person in the United States who is allowed to direct that show. I don't know the full story of that, but anyway, yeah, I think Hedgerow is in a phase of its theatrical life where it wants to be part of the larger community. And Delaware County Community College is an amazing place to do that because there are so many fantastic students. I've been really, really blown away by the quality of work and the enthusiasm and the integrity that has come from working with these people.
That is fantastic to hear. I always love hearing about how well the students are being portrayed. And I think that leads us into one of our next questions with Raven.
Yes. So another question I wanted to ask you is, what are some of the challenges and benefits of doing a Shakespeare play specifically, rather than maybe something like Tuesday that was produced before?
Right. That's an awesome question. And it will continue to be asked for as long as Shakespeare is canonized in our high school and college and university educations. I'm personally a huge, huge Shakespeare stan. So that's where I'm coming from in this positionality. But I also know that there are lots of people who are look, there have been other amazing voices that we need to elevate. Does it always need to be this old dead white dude? For me, for my money, he has such a body of work that has been twisted and knotted up and reimagined and untangled and retangled in so many different ways that his work is collectively owned in my mind, and you can do with it whatever you want to. That's one of the huge advantages. It's in the public domain. So if you say, I want to do a version of Hamlet that is all clowns, you can. No one is going to say boo to that in terms of rights. You might get audience members who are a little confused, but you have the right to do that. So that's one of the things I think is really awesome about Shakespeare. It's this huge amount of totally accessible, completely free, really high quality stories that anybody can produce. Another thing that is really amazing about producing Shakespeare is you don't need an elaborate set. You don't need elaborate costumes. You don't need elaborate props. You don't even need light and sound tech if you can get creative, because he didn't have any of those things, neither did his actors. So if you want to do really low budget, really high quality theater that allows for a lot of space for the imagination and a lot of space for like theater magic to happen outside of the technical world, Shakespeare is a great place to start. And I think that means that it opens the door to a lot of up and coming new theater artists who want to be able to produce plays that have names so people will come and see them, but also they don't want to be barred from the theater world by not having a budget like Broadway. There are, of course, also like real challenges in doing Shakespeare. One of them is language has changed a fair amount since he was writing. He was still writing in early modern English. He wasn't writing in Old English. So we're not so very distant from Shakespeare the way we might be from like Canterbury Tales or something like that. That's an initial challenge in working on Shakespeare. Is your first time. There are a couple students in this cast for whom this is their first time doing Shakespeare. And they're doing amazing because it is a little bit like learning a second language that has a lot of similarities to your language, but a lot of differences. And in Macbeth in particular, it has some of his most dense, like twisted language because Macbeth is losing his mind partway through. So his sentence structures start getting a little wild. Yeah, I think another challenge potentially is we're all really used to, like, we all grew up with stories that were told on screens. So it's kind of like shoulders to the top of your head. That's the level of performance that we're used to watching in films. And it's kind of what we're used to giving too. If we're on social media, that's where we perform from. So getting people on stage and doing this really broad, really big Shakespearean performance style that's a huge challenge, but I think it's a really good challenge because it gets us in our bodies. It gets us enjoying the physical space that we take up. And that is a step outside of theater. That's just a step towards self-love and like self-actualization in the world that I think is so wonderful.
As a self-proclaimed Shakespearean fan myself, I can hear the amount of adoration you have for his works. And I can say I agree with you wholeheartedly. It is one of my favorite things when it comes to Shakespeare is the creative liberty that is in his plays, but also the complexity that we can put on stage for others to see. And that goes into a little bit of one of my questions of what are some of the challenges you saw the students overcome while working on Macbeth?
Wow. It's about picking, it's about sorting all of the amazing triumphs that I've seen and picking just a few. I think one person who comes to mind is Olan. I don't have his last name in front of me. For a person who does words for a living, I'm particularly bad with names. But Olan has been in one play before this one, Little Shop of Horrors, and he is taking on the character of Macduff, which is an enormous character. And he's doing an incredible job with it. I see the work like the difference in the first time we encountered the words to the next time we encounter the words. It is so evident how much work he's putting in on his own. And we all know, anybody who's worked on a project alone knows that it's that time where you have to hold yourself accountable that is really the most challenging. And I see that I mention Olan because it's very notable to be in a Shakespeare play, only ever having done one play before in your life. But this same level of work is evident throughout the cast. I also want to give special shout outs to our Lady M and our Mackers, of course, himself. They are taking on characters that have, these characters are so dense. There's so much high emotion, and there's so much that is alien to us in our, like, we don't live in a world of kings. We don't live in a world of like sword battles on the countryside. We don't live in a world of famine and magic. And it takes a lot of imagination and a lot of courage to put yourself into that reality and live in it and embrace these devastating arcs. These are heavy arcs that Shakespeare has written. So Yumani and DJ are doing really, really beautiful work there too, in having the courage to take it on. And if I were given enough time, I would shout out every person in the cast because everyone is doing amazing work. But if they're listening, just know, I think you are all amazing, and I love you so much. And I'm going to send you all emails later.
It's absolutely fantastic to hear the amount of passion you have for your cast. It's so encouraging as someone who grew up with theater to have a co-director be this encouraging with everyone, because it makes it such a better, safer space to be more crazy within a production, especially one such as Macbeth. As you said, it is very dense. And I think that leads into our next question with Raven.
Yes, hearing, all the passion that you have for it, everything you've already said is pretty, gives a clear picture of the answer to this question already. But I will ask you directly, why do you think people in the community should come see DCCC and Hedgero's production of Macbeth?
I think this story stays relevant throughout the years, and I think that is evident because it continues to be one of Shakespeare's most produced plays. And I think that is not just down to the fact that there is magic and there are witches and there are sword fights. We love all of that. That's very exciting. But the questions that the play calls upon us to ask ourselves in terms of how far we're willing to go for what we want and what voices we are willing to trust and who we're willing to push away in order to maintain a vision of our own lives that might be incompatible with reality or truth. Those questions are ones that I think are particularly prescient right now in a world where no matter what side of the political aisle you're on, I think we all tend to feel that being able to trust the information you're given is the most important thing in terms of understanding the world you're in. And that's a fear that is sort of played out in this play. But in terms of why DCCC, the Hedgero version, the actors have grown so much since we started. I am seeing sides of them that I hoped I saw glimmers in auditions, but they are just blooming, man. And in terms of why the production aspects of this production, because we're doing stuff with Shakespeare that, not that it's never been done, but that I haven't personally seen it at a community college level, things in terms of tech, things in terms of staging. I really encourage people to come out and see this and support this and have fun with this, because fun has been at the heart of what we're working on. We're trying to give performances and we're trying to tell a story that engages the audience, not that asks you to sit back in the dark and be quiet. In an ideal world, we would have people shouting back at Macbeth. We would have people laughing riotously at some of what's happening on stage. Not all of it, obviously. Some of it's very scary. But I would really encourage everyone to come out and engage with this play as live theater that asks you to, if you're feeling it, stand up in your seat, freak out. I think that's the direction we need to go with live theater, because otherwise we can just watch Netflix. Anyway, I hope that answers that a little bit.
I think it really, really does. Honestly, your answer is so impassioned. I'm not even sure where to go from there. I feel like we could really keep talking about this for maybe another full hour. I would love to ask more questions and hear more about what you have to say. However, on this episode, we are going to feature some performances from the actors in Macbeth, so we got to leave time for that.
Right.
And so I will bring it to the end of this interview section of the episode. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being here and giving your amazing answers to all these questions. Thank you, Jamie, for, being here and asking such amazing follow-up questions.
Thank you all so much for being here and for contributing your awesome questions. Yes. And making this happen. Word of mouth and communication like this goes a super, super long way, not just to making, letting people know about theater, but also helping people better understand why theater. Why would I ever go to that? Because if I have all this other entertainment, why would I go to theater? And my hope is that because you actually get to share an experience with everyone else around you. So yeah, on to the performances, because those are the most important things here. But thank you so much. I had a wonderful time speaking with you.
And thank you, Sarah. Everything that you said only encourages the audience more to participate in theater and go out and seek local theater communities to experience all of the passion that you put into your students and the production itself.
Thank you.
And remember, guys, come out and see the show. Check the description for details on when the show is going to be playing at Delaware County Community College. You can come in right through the front doors of the academic building. The ticket booth will be waiting for you to stop by. Tickets are $10 for students, so if you bring your student ID, you get that discount, while general admission is $15 per ticket. We hope to see you guys there.
And with that, we're out and on to the performances.
The raven himself is hoarse, that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan. Under my battlements, come, you spirits, that tend on mortal thoughts. Unsex me here, and fill me from the crown to the toe top full of direst cruelty. Make thick my blood. Stop up the access and passage to remorse, that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep peace between the effect and it. Come to my woman's breast, and take my milk for gull, you murdering ministers, wherever in your sightless substances you wait on nature's mischief. Come, thick night, and pall thee in the dunnest smoke of hell, that my keen knife see not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark to cry, hold, hold.
Is this a dagger that I see before me? The handle toward my hand. Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, yet I see thee still. Art thou not fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation proceeding from this heat-oppressed brain? I see thee yet, in form as palpable as this which I now draw. Thou marshallest me the way I was going, and such an instrument I was to use. Mine eyes are made the fools of the other senses, or else all the rest. I see thee still, and on thy blade and dudgeon gouts of blood, which was not so before. There is no such thing. It is the bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. Now all the one-half world, nature seems dead. Witchcraft celebrates pale Hecate's offerings, alarmed by her sentinel, the wolf, who howls his watch, and thus with stealthy pace, with Tarquin's ravishing strides towards her design, moves like a ghost. Thou sure and firm set earth, hear not my steps, for fear they prate of my whereabout, and take the present horror of the time which now suits with it. Whilst I threat he lives, words to the heat of deeds too cold breath gives. I go when it is done. The bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that sends thee to heaven or to hell.
You've been listening to This Must Be Heard, brought to you by the New Media Lab and the Office of Athletics and Campus Engagement. The producer of today's episode was Kara Oakes. Our interview hosts today were Raven Amaro and Jamie DeKai, and our interview guest was Sarah Stryker. Our guest performers from the play were Susan Weffel, Melissa Morris, Chelsea Lambard, Brenna Lill, Umani Padmore, and DJ Truxler. Our executive producers are Tashia White, Raven Amaro, and Lushonda Stevens. Editing was completed by Jamie DeKai and Raven Amaro. Victoria Colbreth and Samuel Larson designed our cover art. Indigo Frazier composed our theme music. And I am Lushonda Stevens, your announcer for this episode. Special thanks to the Director of Athletics and Campus Engagement, Allison Gleason, our Faculty Advisor, Professor Maria Boyd, and our in-studio technical advisors, George Doppin and Simone Mokum. If you have an interest in participating in the New Media Lab, contact the Office of Athletics and Campus Engagement or reach out to us on Instagram at DCCC_New Media Lab. Be sure to like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Thanks again for listening.